Hi guys, Peter McKenzie here, Rincon Property Management. We are bringing to you another legal update. So part of our commitment to keep our clients and our partners informed on the new laws that are going to affect them is what this video is about. Before we get started, we are absolutely not giving legal advice. We're just bringing awareness to these new laws. If any of them apply to you and are going to affect you and your business as a landlord, you absolutely should seek competent legal advice, because some of these laws are really going to affect the way that you're able to run your rental property. So let's get started. So it would be negligent if we didn't talk about the COVID Tenant Relief Act. So a lot of this was from 2021. They've extended it, amended it, add laws to it. I just want to say those things, a lot of the things are still affecting you in 2022, mostly around how to collect COVID debt and different time periods. We've made content about this already. Go back and look at what we've already made the content about, but that by and large was the biggest change in landlord-tenant law that I've ever seen since I've been involved in this business. So make sure you go back and look at that. Specifically, what we're not going to talk about is what your local area is doing. I know in our area there are several cities that are trying to implement laws on top of the COVID Tenant Relief Act that are way stricter, have bigger financial commitments and penalties for the landlord. So if you've kind of reviewed the COVID Tenant Relief Act, just know that that is not all there is, that there is local stuff that your cities, your counties are putting out, and that they're trying to change some of these things and make it worse for you. Very few laws make it better for you as a landlord. So we'll move on to the next law that we're going to discuss. Let's talk about Assembly Bill 978. This is kind of tied into the Assembly Bill 1482, which was the Rent Control Act. I forget the name of the exact name, but it was what instituted statewide rent control. So they basically have now applied that law to certain qualified mobile homes. So if you are going to be renting out a mobile home, just know that it may be subject to Assembly Bill 1482 or the provisions in there, which means it's going to control how much you can raise the rent, how you can end a tenancy, just cause eviction, all that stuff. Just know if that's the case, you need to look into that in more detail. The next law is Assembly Bill 838, and this is a provision that is strengthening the local building and safety code enforcement agencies' power. So someone can now report a unit that you have as having poor living conditions, which is going to trigger an inspection, which is just, the local government getting more involved in how you run your business. Just know that this is a new law, and if you, hopefully you're not in a situation where you have bad living conditions at any of the properties you live in, but just know that if you do, this is a law that gives the cities, the health departments, and the building and safety departments a lot more power over what they can compel you to do about it. So if that applies to you, make sure you look at that law. A big change for rental agreements going forward in 2022 is this whole mold disclosure. So our leases and the law already mandates that there's so many disclosures that we have, from carbon monoxide to water heater bracing to fair housing. There's already a ton of disclosures. They're adding one to it, and it's about mold, that you have to educate someone about mold, the risks of it, how to prevent it, what to do about it before they move into the property. So there's a booklet that you can find. Your local landlord association should be able to provide it for you, or if you're working with a company like ours, we get it from the California Association of Realtors. But it is an actual document that's quite a few pages long that has to be a part of your lease. So just know that if you're using an old lease, you need to make that change going forward. Assembly Bill 468, which has to do with emotional support animals. This is a law that is actually helping landlords. So unfortunately, there's a lot of fraudulent activity surrounding emotional support animals. What happens is if a landlord sets a no pet policy, most tenants know how to get around those no pet policies. They get a certificate from a healthcare provider that says they need this emotional support animal to offset whatever disability they have. For people who truly have disabilities, that's a great thing. But unfortunately, there's a fair amount of people who use those laws as a way to get their pets approved. So now this new law is making it stricter and harder for them to do that. So I think they're lengthening the time that the patient and the caregiver's relationship is, and then they're instituting some penalties for people who don't follow the rules that they set out. Again, take a look at this one. This was the one everybody should be looking at, because if you have rental properties, you more than likely have come up across someone who says they have an emotional support animal. A pro tip for you: if you're presented with this situation, there is a company that screens animals. It's called petscreening.com, and they will screen out emotional support animals, service animals for you for no charge. They follow all the rules, all the laws, because there's a real risk to you as a landlord who's trying to do this on your own if you make a mistake. You don't want to be put in a position where you are knowingly or unknowingly are discriminating against somebody with a disability. So go to petscreening.com, have a look at their services, because they do provide a valuable service for landlords like you. Let's talk about criminal background checks. So when you want to check the criminal background of a prospective tenant, usually you're going through the same service that checks credit. There's a bunch of different ones out there, the credit union or the credit bureaus themselves, or Zillow. There's a bunch of people who will check the credit for you. They also check criminal backgrounds. If you're trying to do this on your own, you need to know that they are changing the way you're able to do it. There's a case that was ruled on in the appellate court that now says you can't use a date of birth or a driver's license number to check somebody's criminal background. I see a time in the future where you probably aren't going to be able to use criminal backgrounds at all. We're not there yet, but just know that they're making it harder for you to do. And if your rental advertisements say that you will deny someone with a criminal background, you need to change that. And that's been in place for a while now, but you have to look at every case on an individual basis and judge it by the merits of the case. You can't just say, if you have a criminal background, you can't live here, because you would be discriminating, which puts you in a very precarious situation. So take a look at that, make sure you're up to speed on all those new changes. Okay, there's a new Investigative Consumer Reporting Agencies Act. And what that does is it basically, you need to disclose to prospective tenants that you are going to be doing a background investigation that's going to include checking their character, their credit, all these things, and that's going to affect potentially how you decide on whether or not you're going to rent the property to them. This is just more red tape, more disclosures that you need to take care of as a landlord, which is getting more cumbersome as they keep adding these laws on top of laws on how you're going to do your job, which is to screen potential applications to see who's qualified to live in your house. Just know that they strengthen this provision. There's new rules in there, and you want to make sure your contracts that you're having the applicant sign reflect all the new changes. Those are the ones that we think are going to have the most effect on our clients and new landlords, but those those for sure are not all the laws that came out. There are other laws that came out. We clearly don't have the time to go through all of them and report on all of them, but you should make it a practice to take your law firm or your attorney that you deal with on a regular basis and ask them about the new laws. There are landlord associations, apartment associations who keep their members up to date, which is probably a good idea that you belong to one of those, or you work with a company like ours who stays up to speed on all the new changes. But understand that laws are constantly changing. They are not making it easier for you as a landlord. They are 100% making it more difficult, more cumbersome, and easier for you to make a mistake. And we all know that not knowing is not a defense against not following a law. So the risks are higher for you, for me, for everyone who's a landlord, which is why it's really important that you stay on top of the laws. Again, none of this is legal advice. We advise you to contact your attorney for any legal advice pertaining to any of these laws. Thanks for watching. We'll have more legal updates as things change, and thank you for your time.